My career prize money was 247,000 and something, not a lot of money. Everything about the working world, printer and scanning and stuff, I just didn't know about any of that stuff. Calls in the office, in an open plan office.
And it won the William Hill Sportsbook of the Year last year. Pretty nice prize of 30,000 sterling.
That's right, yeah.
So is that the most you've ever won?
in a single day, yeah.
Conor Niland, thank you so much for joining me.
Good to be here.
So tennis, is it fair to associate it with considerable wealth?
I guess it depends who you ask. We have billionaires in our sport, the likes of Roger Federer and Serena Williams, who are able to earn incredible money after they finish their, true sporting icons, not just tennis icons. But then obviously you have this big pyramid or bottleneck in tennis where you've got the very, very tip who are earning an awful lot of money, and then it goes quite quickly to a very wide base of players who are really struggling to make ends meet and make money week to week. So you've got 3 tiers to pro tennis. The very, very top are doing very well, between 1 and 100 in the world, and then 100 to 300, the Challenger Tour, where I spent most of my career. You can be, if you don't have a good week, you're losing money, and you're, kind of a world-class tennis player in most people's definitions, but not making any money. And then there's the third tier between 300 and sort of 2,000 in the world, and then you're have to face up to the reality pretty soon that if you're at that level, you're losing money pretty much every week with hotels and flights and coaching costs. So, the story changes depending on where your ranking is.
Yes, yeah. You were kind of in between 2 tiers.
All 3 almost, yeah. Well, not quite in the top tier, but not for long enough.
Flirting with it.
Yeah, exactly. I was at a nice vantage point, certainly from the perspective of the book, that I was ranked 129 was my career high. So I was sort of well inside the challenger level experience and getting opportunities to play in and see the very, very top of the sport and sort of see how that world works and what it looks like. But then also when I was coming up, I was, 500 in the world for periods and 400 in the world and making my way. And even right this week, the Irish Open is on. Which is a $15,000 futures event. Now that $15,000 is spread between all the players for the singles and the doubles in that week. So the winner will take home, 1,100, 1,200 euro for the week. And that's the guy who's gone and won the tournament. Obviously half the tournament lose in the first round. They're taking home, you're talking 100, 150, 200 euros for their week. And they've flown here. They're probably spending 100 quid a night on a hotel. Maybe they get lucky and get somebody to put them up, a local member or something. But the reality is when you're climbing that ladder, it's extremely expensive. And then if you want to do it right, and if you are, say, between 100 and 200 in the world and trying to get to an elite level, you can be talking 100k plus in terms of your yearly expenses because, you're having to get down to Australia at the start of the year in January. So you're going to the French Open, Wimbledon, US Open. You have to play those 4 events if that's when you're at that ranking. Your schedule can't be as local, say at the futures level when you're starting out. Maybe you can say, well, listen, if I'm Spanish or Italian, I can play all my futures events in my home country. When you get to the challenger level and the higher levels, you kind of have to you're obviously guided a little bit more by the tour and what's on offer. So things can get very expensive, and at that level, you're going to want to be traveling with a coach. You're competing against the very, very top guys who maybe have a team of 6 or 7 people. So you have to try and build in a support team. So it gets difficult. And some countries have national federations that can help them. Maybe there's private sponsors, but you're not at a level where you're bringing enough visibility to a brand. When you're 100 in the world or 150 in the world, you're not on TV. So a brand isn't necessarily going to want to fork out an X amount of money to get their logo on your sleeve. So it's challenging.
It's interesting. I mean, with that, you mentioned considerable amounts of money in the top tiers. Can that become a distraction to these players, do you think? I mean, are there brands already kind of on their tail? And
yeah, I mean, so at the biggest junior events, and we're talking not just under 18, but you're talking under 14 events, at the biggest kind of world events at that age group, you've got management companies at those tournaments signing up the winners of those events. So, you know, the number one in the world 13-year-old is with an IMG or an Octagon, you know, who will then obviously sort out all their off-court contracts and that from there, but that's how young it is. So I think once you've gotten to a point in your career, if you're one of the top 5 players in the world, you've probably been an elite player at world level for 6 or 7 years and are probably almost used to being in that environment and having that sort of circus, you could say, around you.
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, before maybe the general public heard about Yannick Sinner, he's probably 4 or 5 years already into a big contract with Nike and all the rest. And obviously it then goes to yet another level when he gets to Wimbledon, but I don't think it comes out of the blue for a guy like him. He's been building up to it because that's sort of been around him since, as I say, he was certainly in his teens.
Yeah. What age were you when you realised how much money was attached to it? And by which I mean the need for money for you to go out to all these tournaments, but also how much money you could make.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're sitting at home as a young fella watching tennis on TV, you know, that's what attracts you to it. It's one of the most visible sports. You know that there's, let's say, not money attached to it isn't what you're thinking about when you're 12 or 13, but there's an element of there's an aura about it. It feels important, and yes. I guess you know what comes with that. So you have a sense. I didn't really appreciate, I guess, what it might take in terms of financials until when I finished school in England at 18, and between that and going to college in the US, I took a year off and played full-time tennis. Lots of my peers had maybe gone pro, quote unquote, at 16 and stopped education. I finished my high school, shall we say, or secondary school education at 18. And before I went to college, said, listen, I'm going to do a full year on the tour. So I went and played futures events for 12 to 15 months. And remember one trip down to Australia and New Zealand in January 2001. I did, I think, 11 weeks in a row with a group of other Irish players. And again, me being kind of new to it, I was with a couple of older guys who had been around the tour a little bit longer, and they kind of led it. But I started to realise that we weren't staying in hotels. We were staying in caravan parks and motels. Yeah. We were eating, we were going to the local 7-Eleven and buying cornflakes and milk, and that was our breakfast. There was no hotels and hotel breakfasts here on this futures level of the tour. So yeah, I just kind of got a bit of a wake-up call at that point. Was starting to obviously see what the prize money checks were as well. I was qualifying into these events, maybe winning a round or two, so I'm coming away with, you're talking a couple £100 and then trying to see how far that could stretch. So yeah, that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call, I guess. And then you start to travel with older guys who've been doing it for a few years, and you start to realise that the only place where you can sort of survive here financially on the tour is inside the top 100. So that's all anyone is focused on is top 100, top 100, top 100. That's all you ever hear about. That's when you get on TV. That's when you get the respect. That's when you get the prize money. So everything kind of starts to squeeze and bottleneck towards that one space. Yeah, you were so close. Yeah. So far, it was a funny number. Yes. Well, as I say, like 129, it's like if I see that, on a speedometer or something, not that I'd ever go 129, maybe kilometers an hour, I sort of see, 129, there's my number again. So it pops up in my daily life, or 1:29 p.m. on a digital clock. I sort of get my, it gets my adrenaline going, my dopamine hit comes, exactly. You spoke in the book about getting a scholarship to Milfield School in Somerset. Yeah. Which is a very, very posh boarding school. You have a great line, which is, if Repton was old money, Milfield, which remains the most expensive boarding school in the UK, was new cash. And then you go on to describe the type of students there, and former students. So there was Olympians, there was singers, actors, princes,
sheikhs and charlatans.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm fascinated. I think everyone's fascinated by posh boarding schools in general, but in a place like that where wealth is the common denominator, are there still hierarchies of wealth? And did you feel
Yeah, there are. People talked about it quite a lot. Yeah, so there was a real fascination with an interest in money. I felt at that school. I came from, a normal non-fee paying school, Crescent College in Limerick, where everyone was sort of coming from a very similar place. And then I went to this place, and as I say, I had actually signed up for a different boarding school, Repton, which, as described, old money is a little bit more sort of Hogwarts, sort of gowns and beautiful sort of spires and older buildings. But Milfield, when I went, was kind of like a brand new, shiny, almost like a university campus, and very, very focused on sport. And when I went there, I couldn't believe how good the facilities were. 400-meter running track, indoor tennis courts, 50-meter indoor swimming pool. Like, we didn't have a 50-meter indoor swimming pool in Ireland at the time. I don't think. This was 1997. So it was just a different world. Now, you did have a cohort of students who were there on sports scholarships, which I think normalised the student body a little bit, because, you'd have, again, I remember Mick Jagger's nephew, I think he was, his surname was Jagger, walking around. You had all these, like, Pierce Brosnan's son was there. It was, a really... a completely different world. And I guess I was there for sport, and I kind of hung around with my teammates a lot, again, who would have come from more similar backgrounds. But there was definitely, huge wealth. Again, story from the book where one of my roommates, parents were lawyers in Hong Kong, and was telling me about a helicopter ride he had taken with Enya playing in his ears, and that was sort of the only thing he knew about Ireland. So just a very different world. Yeah.
And then getting back to the tennis, was there anybody around to provide wealth management advice, or was there ever stories like, or was anyone there to do that for you?
Not really. I never had a whole lot of a steer on that, to be honest. I probably came at the end of my career. I did a kind of a course when I retired with the ATP, where they helped you write a CV, and you got to understand a little bit of the workings of the sport, but that was sort of or the mechanics of the tour, but that was sort of after I'd finished. But wealth management stuff, no. There was an ATP top 200. When you got to the top 200, you got invited to a weekend in London where they took you through any media obligations, things like that. But actually, funnily enough, I don't remember money being a part of it, or what does, if you are going to make it in the next year or two, and your circumstances change and you start to earn a lot of money, how should that change or impact on your choices? That didn't happen. I wonder if that happens, say, in the Premier League or in English football clubs.
Well.
They would imagine they should. But no, I don't recall that ever being. I remember an awful lot of people complaining about not making enough money. I don't remember a lot of wealth management stuff now, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah. Also in the book, you talk about an anonymous Irish American benefactor who helped you get to Nick Bolletari's academy. Yep. I'm not going to ask who that was, but I'm curious.
Well, I don't know who it was.
Okay.
I still don't know, believe it or not. Somebody found out, I'm sure. But essentially an Irish-American wealthy businessman approached Tennis Ireland back in, again, 98 and said, who are your kind of most talented two juniors? I want to pay for them to go to the best academy in the world. And luckily for us, myself and Stephen Nugent were chosen to go over, and we spent 2 weeks there. And I never found out who he was. I didn't go and try particularly hard to find out who it was. Maybe I should have. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, Bolitar Academy, suggested that, they'd like to have us back in September, and maybe. And now I had just finished my first year at Milfield of my 3 years. So I kind of felt a bit settled there, even though I'd had a pretty iffy year. And in hindsight, I was clearly going to be getting much better tennis a much better tennis education at Bolitar, but at the time that wasn't as clear. When you're reading the book, it's really obvious that I should have probably gone to Bolitar, but at the time it wasn't as obvious. So could have maybe gone back out to your man and said, will you pay for 2 years instead of just 2 weeks? Yeah. Who knows? But I didn't even ask that question. I went back to Milfield and did okay there, but it wasn't sort of the 4 hour, 5 hours a day training that I would have gotten at Bolitar.
Did you feel pressure to make money?
Yeah. No. What money was the whole. I guess the whole point of it. I suppose I definitely reconciled with myself at a certain period in my career that I was unlikely to be kind of coming out of this with a pension and a nest egg and an awful lot of money. When I was hitting 27, 28 years of age, my goal became I want to play in the Grand Slams so I can give people context and myself context and I suppose achieve a dream. And I was getting to a point where I suppose my career was washing its own face. I was, at 150 in the world, 200 in the world, I was sort of making, give or take, what I was spending. With a little bit of help from various quarters. So that made it a lot easier. But then it's no coincidence that I stopped playing at 30 years of age. Now I'd had hip injury, I needed surgery, but if I had been making a legitimate income at that stage, I think I would have gone back out there. Okay. But it felt like if I'm not making money at 30, I can't. This is a 20s thing. You know what I mean? I can't, even though I'm playing Grand Slams, it just didn't feel like it was a legitimate thing to be doing and continue. And I'm glad I actually made that decision, that I didn't let it drift to 34, 35, because I know that transition out of tennis, it takes a while. So I'm glad I started that a little bit earlier than I might have. But yeah, the money thing is it's a massive issue for players, and again, it's a little bit of a self-respect thing as well. That you've got so many, say, soccer players or other team sports that are making decent money, don't have huge expenses, whereas you can be 120, 150 in the world and feel like you might be losing money or just about breaking even. Doesn't seem right in such a global sport. So yeah, it definitely plays on players' minds.
Around what age were you when you started thinking about contingency plans, whether or not you were ready for it, but that you started to think about it?
Well, in fairness, I kind of always did both. I always did academics and tennis. I never went all in, and maybe I should have. But I was, finished school, went to university in the States, and then went on the pro tour sort of between 23 and 30. And I guess that was my contingency and that was my safeguarding. If you have a decision to make as a footballer to go to England and become a full-time footballer at 16 and that happens for you, and then you're at 28, 29 back out in the real world, not having had even finishing your primary education or your secondary education, no university, that's a different proposition. So I think in some ways, while tennis, you probably feel a bit shortchanged, no pun intended, as a tennis player at times. The fact that a lot of players say finish their secondary and go to college in the States means that transition is a little bit easier. Plus, you're kind of running your own business when you're traveling and staying in hotels and booking flights as well. Yeah. So I think it actually because the tour is difficult, I think it actually makes the transition period out of the game a little bit easier because you're kind of a little bit more, you're dealing in the real world a little bit yourself. Yeah.
What's it like though going for a job interview when? No, it must be strange.
Yeah. I mean it is. Yeah, I mean it's funny. I remember in one interview, it came up that somebody, I'd put on the CV, obviously, the tennis
superstar
thing. Yeah. I don't know if superstar was there, but definitely tennis. And it came up that, and you played Novak Djokovic at the US Open. And one of the guys said, "Did you win?" And I was like, "Do you think I'd be sitting here if I'd beat Novak Djokovic a couple of years ago at the US Open?" So I guess it's kind of like, it's there in the background when you're speaking, but you can only bring it so far. Ultimately, these people want somebody who can perform, the specific job, and they need to see what qualifications you have. And it kind of gets you in the door, and it might get you a cup of coffee and get you a first interview, but it sort of, it only lasts so long. That sort of, I won't call it a halo effect, but it's certainly a little bit, it gives you a little bit of a push, but then ultimately you're all judged on exactly the same things after a little while. So I think that that reality kind of sets in quite quickly. But yeah, the interview process again, I was 30 when I finished. I went back and did a master's part-time in real estate while working in a commercial property firm. Was doing a little bit of coaching for a year or two after I finished as well. So I was kind of doing a few different things, transitioning out and sort of sampling, and wasn't sure exactly what route I was going to go. For a time I was like, well, I'm going to try tennis coaching, see if I want to do that. Ended up not, I guess, with the hours and weekends and evenings, I felt like it didn't suit me. So pursued a career and have pursued a career then in commercial property for the last 11 years.
It's a competitive industry, but so is tennis.
Yeah. Yes.
Does that play in your favour?
Yeah, listen, I think every job you need to be sort of self-driven, I guess, and motivated. And I think for me, time management, certainly from being maybe a student athlete, even more so in college in the States, like as a pro player, you actually have a lot of time in your hands, too much time in your hands sometimes. You know, you're going to an event and you're waiting for your match to start at 6 p.m. and you're sitting there from breakfast going, I can only do so many warm-ups. Whereas college in the States, you know, your schedule is pretty tight, and you have to juggle a lot. And I feel like that time management sort of piece really has helped me, I guess, in this second half of my life in terms of trying to juggle everything and juggle family and the book and work and all the rest. So I've had to do a little bit of that the last couple of years, but I think I'm pretty good at it. And I think that's probably something I learned from, I think, being a student athlete in the States. Yeah.
Let's talk about the book, which you started writing during lockdown.
Yeah, that's right, 2020, yeah.
At what point did you bring what you had written to Penguin, or did you get in touch with them, or what happened there?
Yeah, well, I was approached actually a couple of years before that by a small publisher who you know, it was again a cup of coffee. I had worked. I was doing a master's, as I said at the time, plus working. We were expecting our first child as well, so I kind of looked at it, but it ended up not really being the right time. So, as I say, COVID came around a couple of years later, had a bit more free time in my hands and started to write, and sort of one page became 10 pages, became 50 pages, and actually went back to the small publisher who at the time, with COVID and everything, it wasn't the right time for them. So ended up, getting in front of Penguin, Michael McLaughlin and Brendan Barrington, and you know, I'll never forget them saying, "Look, we really like this, but write a little bit more, and come back to us." So I had to do up. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but if you want to write a non-fiction for a non-fiction proposal, you have to do kind of more of a formal outline. So I guess if it was a novel, it's a little bit more. You're sending 3 or 4 chapters, but you're almost writing a thesis about what the book is going to be about. So it was, you know, took quite a bit of time to put that together, and went back to the guys, and as I say, it wasn't over the course of weeks; it was over the course of months. We started to work together, and it went from there. And for about a year and a half, it was kind of mostly on my own writing it, and then. As I say, 18 months later, started working with Gavin Cooney from the 42, who, so he would do some interviews. I would keep writing. He would write something. I would edit it, put it in my own sort of words. And it sort of worked like that. And then December 23 was sort of the final hand in. So it was, you know, a good few years now, not writing. There were times in that period where nothing was happening. You know, say the proposal was with the guys and they had to seek approvals internally, and it could be a month or 2 months. So Yeah, it took a little while, but I'm glad I took that time and it helped. And every time I had an idea, every time I had a memory, and that could be at 3 a.m, you know, I'd literally be typing it into my phone. Some of the best stuff I wrote was at 3 a.m. on my phone. I would.
Did memories start coming back?
Totally, yeah. I mean, 100%. I went back and looked at every match I ever played on, you know, the ITF website, and it brought back memories from the tournament. And as I say, the memories would pop back into your head. There's stuff I remember now that I kind of wish I'd put in the book, you know. So yeah, you have to make peace with that as well. But yeah, it was nice to actually have that period of time to do it, and to sort of try and dredge up all the memories and the emotions and do it justice.
And did Penguin give you an advance?
Yeah, got an advance beforehand. Again, all very new to me, so had to kind of review it without any context. But you know, really, I have had and have a great relationship with all the guys in Penguin. It's been an absolute pleasure. But yeah, got an advance, and I guess that's all part of the gig. But I guess it was a bit of a different one, right? This isn't the Brian O'Driscoll, you know, autobiography, Johnny Sexton autobiography, where you know it's going to do probably X, Y, and Z in terms of sales because of who the person is. So it was a little bit probably of a leap for the guys, a little bit of a punt for the guys, which you can totally understand because you just didn't know the book. For it to sell had to be really good, and absolutely, it's paid off, which is brilliant, and it's still. You know, we're a year and a bit in, and it's still selling, and hopefully get another Christmas out of it by the looks of it, in terms of it still being out there. And so, no, it's been great fun. Yeah,
and it won the William Hill Sportsbook of the Year last year, for which there was a pretty nice prize of 30,000 sterling.
That's right, yeah.
So is that the most you've ever won?
in a single day, yeah. Yeah, it would be,
That's wild.
It's funny, yeah, it's ironic. Definitely a bit of irony there. But probably, I think Wimbledon met first round, I think was about 20,000 euro, I think I got for that, which was pretty good.
Nice.
I could have that completely wrong, but that's what I think a long time ago. And I won the Israel Open in 2010, which was about 14,000. Again, I'm very open about all this because, you know, it's just your career prize money is up there.
Sure.
You know, it's been, people have said it back to me about 1 million times the last year. My career prize money was 247,000 and something, you know, over the course of 7 or 8 years. So not a lot of money. But so yeah, they were kind of my big, obviously US Open, Wimbledon first rounds, and Israel Open were kind of my 3 biggest prize money checks, but all less than the William Hill.
Sure. Did you ever splurge the money, or were you always aware of there might not be another win in the next few months, so I have to
No, there's only there's not many of those prizes around, and that. So no, I'm not a splurger. So it's it hasn't really been spent yet, I guess. But well, it'll go into the house or the kids or something very boring probably at some stage. But yeah, I guess again, maybe from being in the in that world of the tour and having to manage my money and my finances for so many years, I'm pretty conservative, I guess. So no, I didn't go out and buy a shiny new car for 36,000 euro, whatever it was, It was 30,000 sterling, so 36,000 euro, I think it was, yeah.
So you've remained conservative even in your work now in commercial property? Yeah.
No, I think it's you either are that way inclined or you're not. And yeah, I'm fairly young family and all that as well. So I try and I'm a saver, I suppose, and not a big splurger. I like my holidays, but experiences, I guess, are kind of the big one for me. I'm not massively into cars and all that kind of stuff, so no.
Sure. Do you invest?
Not really. No, I'm not. Again, I probably didn't have the disposable income for it for so many years, and again, coming to the working world and salaries and all that a little bit later. I guess I was learning all that stuff a little bit later as well. So, you know, you have your your pension with work and all that, which is nice that I didn't have any of that sort of stuff before. So I guess that takes care of it. But no, I'm not. I don't have stocks and shares and properties and all that stuff now.
What age were you when you got your first payslip? Away from tennis,
I would have been, I guess, well, there would have been a coaching pay slips, I guess, at 30, 31, and I started in commercial property at 31, 32.
Yes.
So, again, all that stuff was new to me.
Yes.
And I guess, the whole, everything about the working world, even, again, mentioned a little bit in the book, even work in the office printer and scanning and stuff. I just didn't know about any of that stuff. I'd never had to do it. Writing emails to clients, calls in the office, in an open plan office.
Yes.
With your boss not listening in, but obviously sitting beside you and can't not listen, and thinking about that. And I think a lot of that stuff is underrated in terms of how much that impacts people, especially younger staff. You see younger staff going out of the office sort of probably a little bit concerned about how they're going to be perceived in terms of their calls. So I guess having those experiences at 31, 32 are not probably as easy to deal with maybe as when you're 22, 23, when you're first in that world. So it was not an easy sort of transition.
What about just sitting in a chair for 8 hours?
Yeah.
I really mean this because I've had kind of stints of being, do you know what I mean, away from the office, being more freelancy.
As he shifts in his chair here after 20 minutes.
It takes a while to just be able to sit in a chair for a few hours at a time.
They're long days, and I've spoken to tennis players who, see, maybe are in a relationship with somebody who's got a 9 to 5 and they're on a week off, and they've gotten up at 9 and they're looking at the watch at 6 o'clock and been like, she's not home yet, like she's still at work. How long a day is this? It's like a wake up call before you have to do it yourself. But totally, as a tennis player, okay, you can have early mornings and that, but a lot of the time your day can be, as I said, you have a lot of free time and time to kind of do what you want, I guess, and then to be in an office from maybe 8:30 or 9 to 5:30 or 6 is a big adjustment, and not having that physical exercise and release as well. It's I guess when I started work as well, it was a full tilt 5 day a week. You were there till 5, 6 o'clock, even on a Friday. Whereas, obviously, maybe not as much in commercial property, but in some industries, I guess the hybrid working is there, which maybe makes it a little bit easier for people. But it was definitely a little bit of a shock to the system that the full 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, Monday to Friday. So yeah. Does anyone get used to it?
What about for any young athletes who might be listening to this? Any advice for them in terms of financial decisions that they, or to be thinking about their future career? Any advice for them?
Maybe pick a team sport.
Yes.
Because you'll have an owner of a club who might pay for your bus trips and stuff to events. So, but seriously, being an individual athlete is challenging from a perspective. It does fall on you or your mum and dad. In terms of having to pay for all that. So, listen, I'd love to have advice about how to invest all your big winnings, but I didn't have that experience. So, listen, I said earlier, I don't have any investments. I'm still quite interested in that whole world, and obviously I'm in commercial property. So, I have a good understanding of how important it is to invest and to do it early, and almost that that whole compounding effect of investments is so important. And if you can start that at 18 compared to at 28 or 38, it's the world of difference when you're at retirement age. So
that's Warren Buffett's secret. He started at 11 or something crazy.
Yeah, and again, it's funny. I was a bit of a Warren Buffett nerd for a little while. When I was on tour, I read Snowball and The Making of an American Capitalist, which are the two great biographies on him. So I was quite well versed in his philosophy and the margin of safety and those kind of concepts that I find I use them in my life now, and even within the context of tennis, the margin of safety sort of thing. Like if my kid is, standing right on the curb at a stop, at a traffic light, I'm like, step back a little bit, give yourself a little bit of space in case somebody, I don't know, brushes past you. So I love all the Warren Buffett stuff. It hasn't translated into me being, a major investor or anything, but I always loved his outlook was just so sensible and obviously very innovative as well in its own way. He just announced his retirement. Is he finally? Is he 90? And Charlie Munger too. Actually, read a couple of books on him. So I really liked that whole mindset that they had of long-term views and all that. So it's something that always sort of spoke to me, the value investing thing, but it hasn't translated into an awful lot.
Yet,
exactly.
And on that note, any financial goals for the next 5 years?
I guess for me, I'm still consolidating, I guess, what's happened with the book and what my next steps are in terms of will I do another one and what does that look like? So I guess, trying to build on what's happened for me in the last year and a half, whether that translates to anything financial, I don't know. But I'll probably always be somebody who'll be fairly, conservative in what I do. My goal is probably not to do anything stupid, which is probably a very Warren Buffett thing to say, right? And just to, keep things simple.
Super duper. Conor Niland, to the margin of safety. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Cheers.